Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Lone Star Collective, the official podcast of Texas Cannabis Collective. This week, we got a live episode. I'm joined by fellow board members Jesse Williams and Loren Simpson. How y'all doing this evening?
Hey,
Great.
good.
Glad y'all could be here. We were supposed to have our executive director here tonight, Austin Zamhariri. He had some personal issues, so we wish him the best. Uh, he'll join us again on the next live, I'm sure. We want to talk tonight about our recent marijuana policy lobby day, right? And how it went and what everybody thought. My personal thought is, you know, all things considered, post pandemic, uh, let's be honest. A lot of the groups that are part of the coalition have kind of had a what I like to call a falling away of interest, probably, due to the pandemic and the fact, a lot of the groups haven't been able to have meetings, uh, they haven't been able to schedule events and whatnot. I mean, how many times did the Texas Normal Puff and Putt get put off,
God,
before
several
they
times.
finally had it, right? But I mean, we had a pretty good turnout, all in all, for what it was worth. Uh, Wished it could have been a little bit better. I don't know. What are y'all's feelings?
I definitely love seeing a whole lot of new faces that
Yes.
I hadn't seen, and I'm not even really familiar with them online. And they seemed very passionate, and that they get it. It was just, yeah, I really enjoyed meeting a lot of the new people.
I was glad to
Yeah.
see some familiar faces as well show up. It's good seeing new people come out and give some new information and representatives see new faces rather than familiar faces are not bad, but it gets stale. There's a point where it's like,
What are you trying to say, Jesse?
well, well, we're not the only people in the state that need some flipping help. So it's good to see some new faces show up and show that there are other people that are involved and have a voice and want to be heard.
Yeah, I would have to say at the point in time that they asked everybody to raise their hand, if they were newcomers. I don't know what would you say, Jesse? Get my guesstimate would be about 75% of them were newcomers, first timers.
I can't attest to that because I didn't show up till like 11:30 noon.
I saw
Okay,
you
Yeah.
again.
Jesse. Lauren, did you pay any attention to that little hand raise
I
when
was
they did it?
definitely impressed with, and I guess I was pretty much against it. Yeah, I would say so. 75, maybe even 80%. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I've been doing this 9 years. And so, yeah, you have those same faces that you know you're going to see. Some I missed. There were some kind of heavy hitters, in the state of Texas that weren't there. But we had Colt Morris fly in from El Paso with his crew,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I mean, so I just, yeah,
And he brought in a whole crew of people from El Paso, not just him and one or two. There was like four or five of them, I think.
yeah, yeah, it was really good to see him.
Well,
Yep.
I know one thing that I was impressed with, as always. Texas Normal and Texas for Responsible Marijuana Policy always does a great job putting together the literature, the voting records, and everything. I kind of helped out with the maps this time for them, but that's just because I was already doing it for what we've been involved in with all our direct actions, right? But at any rate, they always do a great job. The only thing that I think could have been a little better, in my opinion, and I don't know what their thoughts were. The postcards seem to get smaller every time we have a lobby day.
Your writing is getting bigger.
And the print, of course, has to get smaller because the postcards seem to get smaller.
It
Is
won't be
that just
long.
me or?
It won't be long. It'll just be like a postage stamp that says legalize. We hand that off.
Well, I mean, let's be real, folks. If we were being honest, that's all it should be. It should be just them looking at the polls that are out there, like the hobby school that did the poll in January that shows 8 out of 10 people are for expanding the medical program. 8 out of 10 people are for penalty reduction down to for minor possession down to just like a traffic citation. 6, almost 7 out of 10 people on this survey said they're for full legalization. I mean, that's just for anybody to try to say that the people of Texas are not there on this issue. I mean, they're not paying attention, in my opinion. I don't know what you think on that, Jesse, but
I'd say that they haven't probably been made aware of it. Some obviously have. Some obviously, very obviously, have been made aware of this fact. Some of them, they have no idea.
Well, they're all aware of it now since we just visited them on Wednesday and handed them a little piece of paper that outlined all of those little facts.
And I'm telling you, I bullet pointed. I handed it to him, and I was like, and this, and this, and this, and then these bills down here. This is Stephanie Click's bill, and this one right here is Joe Moody's penalty reduction bill. I'm like making them read it. I mean, I really, yeah.
So let's talk about not only at Lobby Day, but we've been doing a lot of direct actions. The three of us, especially, have been involved in all of them, and including that with Lobby Day. Let's talk about the mood that we feel around the Capitol on the subject of cannabis as a whole. What is the mood you're encountering this session versus prior sessions? And I want to go to Loren first on that one.
I'm getting a lot more questions. Like it's not just stop. It's like, hold on, I have some questions. What is D8? And what about all these isolates and hemp? And hey, also we have other bills, that are also cannabis related. It just seems like there's a lot more conversation. I've done a lot of, I'll grab a business card, because when you're hitting like E1, E2, it gets overwhelming. So you just grab a business card and you write down the questions that they have, and I'll hand it off to, Jax, if they ask for her specifically, or Chris, if they say that they've talked to Chris before, and so it's been a lot more interactive this year, which is exciting.
What would you say, Jesse, on that same line?
There seems to be more representatives that I've seen that want to be involved in some way, and some of them I think they don't quite understand. They should understand that their best way of being involved would be to actually support some of the other more senior members and the bills that they're putting forward, because they're putting their own bills out. And one of them showed me, they're like, oh, we did our own bill. We did our own medical bill. And you're trying to think in your head, like, how do I explain to them their bill's going to go nowhere? Because it's going to be Click's bill.
Yeah.
And then and also that the bill they wrote is way less than what Click's bill is.
Yeah. Well, especially with the committee substitute, that's a big change to Click's bill, which we'll get into that later on. But yeah, it's to me, I don't know, from the very first time that we set foot in the Capitol to do a direct action, the very first one we did, I did E2, which is the largest number of offices, which it's no big deal. It's a breeze because you're in and out crossing the hallway either side. But I walked into, I want to say, 4 offices that morning, just out of the blue. No representation to me per se, because I'm not in these people's districts, right? And the minute I walked in and said, I'm here to talk about this, that, and the other, in support of House Bill 218, Joe Moody's penalty reduction bill, and immediately these 4 offices, unbeknownst to me, I was looking at the representative at the moment in time, along with his staff members, right? And they immediately lit up and said, let's talk about that for a minute. And what is your feeling? And even conveyed their own feeling that there was a different air about this legislative session, that maybe it was time start having the conversations about taking this to the next level in the state of Texas. Now, while that sounds promising, these are all representatives, right? Where we have the roadblocks always comes on the other side of the mess, right? The Senate is where we always hit the roadblocks. But it seems like there's a different air. The conversations, like I say, are more open. You know, just as like you say, like Loren was saying, when we're doing just the direct actions and we walk in and out, we're in there for what, 15 to 30 seconds tops, maybe. You know, blah blah blah, out the door, and I would say a third of them want a business card or contact information, which of course we have that at the bottom of our direct actions now. But then I would say probably 10% of them want to have a quick conversation about it. And I've even had some staff members, literally, and Austin can attest to this, where when we've been doing it together, we've literally gone into an office, set our spiel, handed them the piece of paper or the pamphlet, whatever we're doing that day, walked out the door, and we're almost into the next office when a staff member come out and said, "Wait, stop. I want to talk to you for a minute." And that's something that I've never experienced at the Capitol before. I don't know about either of you.
No, I definitely. So my new representative is a conservative Republican, and of course I visited her office on lobby day and spoke with her staffer, and it was impressed. Like, I really feel the bridges. Before it was just a taboo subject and it's kind of nerve wracking, but now it's kind of like there's points that you can agree on. The medical side of it, even the penalty reduction side of it. Like, I just feel like, okay, so we're starting, they're vocal about no home grow or retail market or anything like that. But like never before, I'm feeling that there are bridges. Like, I'll be curious to see how the House votes on, let's say Joe Moody's Bill 218. Let's see how they vote on that. If it's stronger than it's ever been, I'll be very curious.
Not only that, but it'll be curious to see how it carries in the Senate.
Sure, yeah.
Which it passed in the Senate the last session, so it was the whole D8 thing that derailed it. But I know I was Wednesday morning, I had a meeting with Senator Nathan Johnson's office, and the staff member that I met with there, that was probably one of the most promising conversations that I've had out of the 25 to 30 meetings that I've had with lawmakers' offices so far this session. And that was on the Senate side. So you combine that with the fact that Austin and I had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with Senator Kokor's office that went very well. Let's face it, folks. They don't want to have the conversation about legalization. And we're going to get into why they don't want to have that conversation later on in the show. But they let us at least bring it up to the point that, hey, we understand this may not be the conversation you want to have, but let me ask you a couple questions, and just throw them some common sense. And they kind of, some of them give you the deer in the headlights. Some of them answer the questions honestly and then give you the deer in the headlights because they don't want to admit what the answer is, right? But the conversations we are having are very open and much more inquisitive, I think, like Loren and Jesse have pointed out. We got to get ready to take a break, folks, for our first sponsor break. When we come back, we're going to get into some of the bills, what they do, what they don't do, and whether or not we agree with them. So we'll come back from in just a minute when we take our first sponsor break and get into that.
Howdy, Colt Power here. These days, many people are choosing to add CBD to their wellness routine. Why? Some like CBD for how it may help them with their focus. Others enjoy the way the plant compound may assist them with their sore muscles and relaxation. For me, CBD has been a game changer in keeping my old sports injuries managed so I can work out and be present for my family. If you've ever been curious about CBD, I invite you to check out our Texas-grown, Texas-made products at powerbiofarms.com. That's power, BIOPHARMS.com.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective, distributed on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. And now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective, the official podcast of Texas Cannabis Collective. Welcome back, Jesse and Loren, and our discussion on Lobby Day. And now we're going to go into some of the bills. Let's talk about the two bills that were the main focus of Lobby Day. We'll start off with that. Jesse, you want to give us a rundown on House Bill 218, what that does?
Pretty much 218 is our penalty reduction bill, and I say that specifically those terms because everybody has been trying to refer to it as a decriminalization bill, and it does not actually remove it from being a criminal penalty. So it is not actually a decriminalization bill. We're not legalizing either with this bill, but it is going to move flour down to a Class C for an ounce. We know that our governor actually would like to see 2 ounces, but Moody's being conservative on it, doing 1 ounce of flour, and then I believe it's was like 15, 16 grams of concentrate.
Yeah, I believe so.
So we're looking at moving concentrates down into the Class B range, if I'm not mistaken, which all of it right now is a state jail felony, no matter how much you have.
Yeah.
So we're going to be moving that into a Class B if we can actually get that across the Senate without any of that language being removed. That is a giant leap for that.
Yeah, I think, and then of course it has an avenue if you don't get, if that charge gets dropped or not processed.
Well, you get to pretty much, you're going to do deferred adjudication,
yeah,
and then you can have it expunged, and you pay like $30.
$30 fee, and you're done with it.
Never.
Whether you do the
rest, all of it goes away.
Yeah, either way, it gets the whole record, the citation, everything's gone, that's great. And then of course there's House Bill 1805, which you kind of referenced a little bit there earlier, Jesse. The what we like to call the mother of medical cannabis or medical marijuana in Texas, Representative Click, and her bill, House Bill 1805, which this bill is good in a lot of ways. One, it's going to add chronic pain, which is going to open the door to a wealth of patients in Texas. They think that it exploded with people signing up after PTSD was added. Just wait until they add chronic pain. And then, so it does that. And then it originally had it in there to increase from the 1% THC by dry weight to 5%. They did a committee substitute, which I'll get into in just a minute. But then it also creates a medical review board where, as the research unfolds, time tells the tale, as they say, they can add more conditions. This review board will be able to add more conditions as well as the time tells the tale and research unfolds, remove conditions that they've realized no longer are really treatable. It'll go both ways on that. So, and that's something I try to point out to lawmakers when I'm meeting with them. Don't think we're just trying to get around the legislature and add conditions willy nilly. That goes both ways. But back to the THC cap, the committee substitute, the way I understand it, and it's kind of crazy the way it's all worded, but the way I understand it, basically replaces the THC cap that's currently there with a volumetric dosage of at 10 milligrams. So, my understanding is that makes it more like prescribing any other medication.
I'm about to say that's pretty much what it is. The way we have any other medication prescribed to us, that's the way it's going to be. It would be dealt. It could be dealt out that way.
Yeah. So those are the two bills that obviously the coalition is behind. Obviously, we have been supporting, and that's what they do now. And they both have a pretty good chance of making their way. They both have been through committee. They've both been voted out of committee. So we're just waiting on calendars on those two bills. But now let me grab up this big old sheet here.
Real quick. Somebody did ask about when it would go into action if approved through the Senate. And I looked real quick for 218. It would go into effect September 1st this year. Sometimes the bills do have little notes in there where they're like, oh, if this gets a super majority in both houses, it goes into effect immediately.
Yes.
But 218 just says September 1st.
Yeah, regardless of how it's actually enacted. But that is interesting that they do put that little footnote in some bills that if it gets a super majority, it's automatic, doesn't even have to go to the to Abbott's desk, blah, 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 whatever. But anyway, now I'm going to show you some more of the work that we do here at the collective. This is the list of bills that we're watching and following. There's only 58 of them. It's just a couple, but they all pertain to cannabis. It's just a few. Every single one of them pertain to cannabis. And mind you, there's a couple that pertain to like cannabis or marijuana paraphernalia that ain't on this list because I don't care. So anyway, all of these bills, to clarify our conversation earlier, Loren, all of these bills, yes, have been referred to committee. Every single one of the bills we are following has been referred to committee. Quite a few of them have either had a hearing or are scheduled for a hearing or are through the hearing process and waiting on calendars. There's an interesting one that I don't have. This is just a brief summary. It's relating to the criminal penalties for certain controlled substances offenses, increasing a criminal penalty. House Bill 6 was just scheduled today for a public hearing on 3/28. Like I said, I don't know the ins and outs, but as far as I'm concerned, anything increasing a criminal penalty when we stand solely for ending the drug war, folks, that's what we stand for. On top of what we do with cannabis, we just need to end the drug war. So we're against that bill. So if you feel like we need to end the drug war and stop the BS with criminal penalties over drug war issues, then I suggest you reach out sometime between now and the 28th of March and let your feelings be known. That's the thing we will get into later also. We have the ability right now, this session, they are allowing us the ability to virtually testify or state your position on bills when they come up for committee hearing. You have to have it done before the hearing ends, but it's usually posted a couple of days before the hearing actually happens. So there's 2 or 3 days where you can go in there and put your testimony and your position for or against on the bill. At any rate, House Bill 6 is one you want to look at. 382 is another one House Bill 382 by Representative Collier is another one that is scheduled for public hearing on 328. That bill is relating to a defense to prosecution for the possession of certain consumable hemp products containing a controlled substance. In other words, if you buy hemp-derived Delta-9 gummies and you don't keep the package, but you still got some gummies, you get caught with them, cop don't know that that's Delta-9 hemp-derived. This is a bill that's supposed to help in the defense of that scenario, from what I understand. Unless I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse.
Yeah, House Bill 382 is probably one of the shortest bills I've ever seen. Like, I went and pulled it up just now, and it's pretty much that. It's like if your product purports to be something else than what it really is, you're going to be held accountable for you mislabeling your product.
Yeah,
This is something that really does need to go through, because, like you point out, the cop pulls you over and goes, "Well, I believe it's this, or my test kit, my little NARC 2 test kit shows that it's this probable weed." You're going to need something in court, so you better have that package. And with this, if you had the package, you go, "Hey, they sold me this. The QR code says it's legal. How am I supposed to know otherwise?"
Yep. And then let's see. I don't go over all of them because some of them a lot of people wouldn't even understand. But we talked about 218, 1805. Let's talk for a minute about House Bill 2127. You want to take the lead on that one, Jesse?
That is all the effort we've ever done on the local level, whether it be Denton, San Marcos, especially San Marcos, being that our city council was like, sure, put it in place, and we've now getting resistance from like the police chief. But all of that would be undone. All of it. Any local measure, and it wouldn't just stop at decrim, any local measure you've put into place, the state is going to just undo it, which is just unheard of in Texas. Usually if we want to undo something, we go in and I say we precision, like laser guide that type of action. And an example in the past is Austin got rid of rideshare programs. They had a little debacle about it. We technically banned like Uber and Lyft from operating within the city. And the legislature came in and was like, no, that precise thing's going to change. But undoing all of it, any local measure is like unheard of.
Yeah, which is utterly ridiculous. Because for a state that's basically run by a Republican Party, I mean, it's a red state, we're a Republican state. So for a state that's Republican, party that prides itself on local jurisdiction taking control of their issues and what they call home rule, which is engrossed within the Texas Constitution, and they think they can pass a law that can circumvent that. So once again, that's one that if you feel strongly about, it's already had its committee hearing. So basically, you're going to have to wait until calendars puts it to the floor for a vote at this point in time, because that's where it's at. I believe it's at calendars now. And once it goes to the floor for a vote, then you can start reaching out to your representatives. If it passes, then we got to start hammering on the Senate side, right? So that's something we don't want to go through. I want to talk real quick before we move on to the big one, 264.
We need to go into break. It is
well,
that time.
Yeah. I want to talk real quick though about 2883, House Bill 2883. That's another one that's scheduled for a hearing for next Tuesday, 328. This basically wants to set up checkpoints on every road coming into Texas from New Mexico. But they're not going to check everybody.
The two of those together scare me.
Yeah. Well, this one scares me more than the other. But I mean, this is crazy. Checkpoints.
And it's coming in from New Mexico, correct? Not going out of Texas?
Not going out of Texas, coming in from New Mexico, and not to stop everybody coming in, only those that appear suspicious. So they can
Profiling.
stereotype. It's a
Oh.
doorway for
We
them
love
to
a profile.
stereotype. You know what I mean? So yeah, 2883 is a bill that we gotta definitely people need to make their position known against that bill now, between now and next Tuesday when the committee hearing is. We're going to sponsor break right quick, and then we're running a little bit behind, but we'll get into 264 when we get back, and Senate Bill 264 that is, and then we'll go into our last segment and our message for tonight when we get back, folks.
Howdy, Colt Power here. These days, many people are choosing to add CBD to their wellness routine. Why? Some like CBD for how it may help them with their focus. Others enjoy the way the plant compound may assist them with their sore muscles and relaxation. For me, CBD has been a game changer in keeping my old sports injuries managed so I can work out and be present for my family. If you've ever been curious about CBD, I invite you to check out our Texas-grown, Texas-made products at powerbiofarms.com. That's power, BIOPHARMS.com.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective, distributed on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. And now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective, the official podcast of Texas Cannabis Collective. I'm your host, Chris Grisolia. I'm joined by co-host Jesse Williams and Loren Simpson, our fellow board members. And we're talking about all the bills and all that good stuff. We didn't get to our favorite Senate bill, 264, which has a companion bill in the House of 4238. And basically, I'll just give a real quick rundown because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but everybody knows the Delta 8 products, Delta 10, the HHO, HHCO, THCO, all that different stuff that's out there on the market today, right? This bill basically, and its companion, basically want to do away with those, take them off the market. And that's it in a nutshell. And of course, we don't support these bills, obviously, for obvious reasons, because there are businesses that have been created, there's employment that has been created, and what should be important to the government officials, tax revenue that's been created, and probably a lot more than they realize already. Any input you want to put on 264, Loren?
Another angle of it that makes me worry with this bill is I feel like it's setting up the Texas cannabis market to be corporate. Because this is going to wipe out a lot of people that have invested in CBD companies. You see the little mom and pop shops or even the franchises of people that own CBD shops. And I think, some of those people are probably waiting until we legalize in Texas and they can take it to the next step and they can actually be part of a cannabis program here in Texas, an adult use or even a full medical program. So it just I don't want to see a corporate takeover of cannabis. It's like they just don't understand it. They
No,
don't understand it.
no. I mean, and to some degree, I think that might be part of what's behind it. There's a whole lot of
Reefer
backdoor stuff
madness.
that associates between those bills and their goals. And in fact, I think we're gonna have a special show just to concentrate on that subject itself. Uh, so, like I said, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it here, but yeah, it basically is going to undo things and do exactly what we don't need to do in Texas, which is go
Even
backwards.
even
And that's what I got to stress to everybody. These are bills 264, Senate Bill 264, House Bill 4238. If there's any bills that you want to speak out against or for, if you're for them, but I have a hard time believing anybody watching this show is going to be for these bills. So if you're going to speak out against anything, if you're going to do anything in the realm of getting involved, these are the bills you need to do it on, because we need to have an overwhelming effect to stop this, and we can do it, and we could do more. And that's kind of what we want to talk about next is you know, we did have a good post-pandemic lobby day turnout. I'm not knocking that turnout for all the things that we had fighting against us, on top of the fact that it was post-pandemic with all the problems we talked about with the groups not being able to have meetings for a couple of years and all that. You also had it in the middle of spring break, which, I mean, sometimes you get the date you get, folks. So it was in the middle of spring break, right? A lot of people, that's the only time they can take a family vacation. So they can't go lobby at the Texas Capitol. I get it. There's another thing that we were just talking about, Austin and I, at the end of lobby day, just kind of milling over things that we didn't even think about that day. There was, I think, 100 more people than showed up, that actually had registered for lobby day. But if they did like the rest of us and waited until the last minute to make a hotel reservation, because let's face it, Texas is big. If you're coming from anywhere more than a couple hours out, you're going to need to get a hotel. And the other thing that hurt us was we did it right in the smack dab middle of South by Southwest. So I can tell you, there's a hotel I stay at there in Austin regularly, every other week or every week when we do our direct actions, or when I have meetings with lawmakers, whatever. Uh, it's $105 a night plus tax regularly. That hotel during South by Southwest was $450. So I'm sure a lot of people
the
said,
week
I can't afford that.
the week leading up, there were articles about how this South by Southwest hotels were like, we're 100% booked. It was like, I think it's like 90% of the hotels in Austin were 100% booked
I
for
can
South
believe
by
it.
Southwest.
I can believe it. But anyway, enough ado about all that. The message we really want to put out there, folks, and I tried to do it. Some of you may have saw it a while back before Lobby Day. I did a little video on my page. Something has to change, and now, and then I think Austin shared it on the collective's Instagram and whatnot. And a lot of people say, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't get involved, because the boogeyman, right? And I'll be honest. I mean, I've been doing this since 2016, and while that's not a long time, I'm going to be honest. I was paranoid, flipping out. I just knew every time the cop drove down the street, I was looking out the window going, shit, he's pulling in the driveway, because I'm advocating for marijuana, right? And I'm doing something, advocating for change, for something that's illegal. I got news for you, folks. Nobody's ever knocked on the door. Nobody's ever called. Nobody's ever pulled in behind me, pulled me over. It don't happen, right?
The most contact you get is like a automatic email from them. It's like, oh, hey, we appreciate you working us. I mean, I've gotten a couple handwritten letters, but other than that, there's usually no contact from the office.
I mean, it's just nothing. I mean, the police, they're not going to know who you are because you called your representative or you wrote your representative or your senator. They're not gonna care. Number one, they don't have time to figure out who all did that.
The time or the money.
Yeah, I mean, so if that's your thing, you say, "Well, I can't do that because then then the man knows who I am." Bullshit.
There's only been one case, and we've actually fixed this legislatively now, where somebody was at the Capitol and they brought up that they were being hounded by DFPS, and their representative was on the public health committee at the time, and the public health, that representative was like, you talk to me afterwards, we're going to get your information, I'm going to make some calls because this is totally unnecessary what's happening to you. And then the DFPS agent retaliated and was like, don't you dare do this, I'll yank your kid out your house if you're going to go with that number. And we fixed that the next session by putting in language in saying you must prove that the usage is harming the kid, and if the kid themselves has been prescribed it, you don't touch them for that.
That is so huge too. That was a big win.
I mean, so we have repaired that situation, and nobody else has ever had the cops roll up to them because I heard you were at the Capitol testifying for weed.
They may call you a libtard, but they're not gonna.
They might do that even whether you are or not.
Right? But, no, right. That's I introduced myself to my neighbor when we first moved here, and I was like, yeah, I'm real excited. It's like 45 minutes to the Capitol. We spent a lot of time during legislative session, and he was like, "Are you a liberal? Only liberals go to the Capitol." And I was like, "Huh." Didn't realize that.
I got news for that dude.
Well, who was all those people that was moving for guns last session?
Yeah,
at the committee hearing.
Who were all the people on opening day this session with the red shirts that said "No Democrat chairs"?
And Democrat chairs,
right.
Chris, what were we talking about yesterday? And then we were talking about people not showing up.
Yeah,
the excuses they come up with. And people are like, it's hard. I'm disabled. And I'm like, I'm disabled. Better yet, my best example of somebody who showed up to lobby day, Angela Mandarino.
Yeah.
She has had a stroke and a double mastectomy in the last year.
Yeah.
And she was there.
She drove herself. She drove herself, her wheelchair-ridden self, bless her heart. If I'd have known, I'd have picked her up and brought her to freaking Austin. But she drove herself from Fort Worth to Austin so she could be there for lobby day. Mm-hmm. If she can be there for lobby day, anybody can be there for lobby day. And I'm sorry, I lived 90% of my life paycheck to paycheck, folks. Hoping, praying I had enough money to make it till Friday just so I could get to the bank with that last paycheck before I ran out of gas, and I guarantee you I still would be at the Capitol if I was still in those shoes. One day does not break a man. You never been sick, you never had car trouble and missed work because of that. Guess what? You're alive, you're breathing, you recovered. I'm sorry, I'm not buying this. Well, I can't afford to do that. It was one day, folks.
And I got asked when I brought this up with somebody, they're like, well, what about people who don't have transportation? And I pointed out, I was like, Karen Reeves does not have transportation. But she goes there. She gets a bus ticket. She comes from north of Waco, goes all these events too. Comes to the Capitol, comes to hand out stuff at times.
She's all over the place. That woman's all over the place.
I saw people yesterday handing stuff out. They're there with other lobby groups, people in motorized scooters, people in chairs with just a joystick, people got blowing a straw to make your cart move. They can show up and get what they want. They get what they want in the legislative session because they show
Why?
up.
Because they show up. Yeah.
Well, in our group, because I know I have pushed a wheelchair or two on lobby day, so it's a very it's a good group. It's the perfect day to come to the Capitol because you will, if it's your first time, you will have somebody that leads you, and we're just all a big support system because we're all nervous. It's like even those
Sure.
that are of us that are seasoned. There are just some offices that you walk into and it's ice cold and they don't blink and they stare at you, don't say anything. I mean, like really uncomfortable, but you just, here's the information and go on about your business. I mean, there's only like 2 of those that I can think of, but
Yeah. Well, here's my philosophy on it. We've talked about the BS. Don't give us this. Don't give us that. Okay, we're done talking about the excuses that everybody has. Everybody has them, and I'm not going to lie. Everybody does have legitimate reasons this time or that time. I mean, we're all human, right? We get it.
Yeah, please don't show up to the Capitol with the flu, COVID, and strep all at the same time.
Well,
That's a great excuse to not be
we
there.
get it. Things happen, folks. But what we're trying to say is, and here's what I keep trying to reiterate to people when I have conversations with them. Well, we live in a very large state. Yes, it's hard to drive from Amarillo to Austin. It's hard to come from El Paso to Austin, although we have people who do it. It's hard to go from Houston. It's hard for me from Denton to go to Austin, right? But I do it. Here's the thing. There are over 29 million people in Texas. Think about it. Think about it for a second. Over 29 million people in Texas. 82% in that latest poll, 82% say they're for expanding medical. 67% say they're for full legalization. Okay? 29 million people, right?
Imagine if even 1% of them showed up.
29 million people. If we had 67% of that 29 million people who supported legalization, you don't have to go to Austin, folks, because we already said they have the ability for you to testify and put your position on these bills virtually this session. They started it last session because of COVID, but they've kept it, and it's a good thing. 67% of 29 million people, that's over 19 million people. If 19 million people were to contact their senators and their representatives, this conversation would be over. That's my point. This conversation would be over. Not only the medical, not only penalty reduction, not only decriminalization. The entire conversation would be over if 19 million people blew up them offices down there and said, we're not going to take this shit anymore. It's that simple. So what are you going to do, folks? I mean, it's pretty easy.
And we're not even asking people to call and have a lengthy conversation.
No.
Like we just tonight said, hey, we just call your representative, tell them I'm your constituent. I'd like you to vote yes if you support the bill, or vote no if it's a bad bill that's going to move us backwards. And that's it. And if they ask you for reasons why, give them a couple simple reasons why.
I don't mean to talk over you, Jesse, but I got one better than that. I just want to challenge everybody who says, everybody in the state of Texas who says that they are for legalization in back stores, at work, in the break room, in their living room. I want every person who says they support cannabis legalization to call their representative's office and say, why are we still having this conversation? We should legalize it and be done with it. 19 million people call their representatives and senators' office and tell them that. You don't think they ain't going to take notice? That's all it would take. I mean, we have forgotten how easy it is to get what we want, really. Because and let's just throw out the perfect example that you've used many times, Jesse, and I'll let you take the lead on it here. The dadgum gun bill last session. Patrick didn't want to let it through when it came over from the House, right? Right?
Oh, he wanted nothing to do with it. And he was actually rather open about why he wanted nothing to do with it.
Because law enforcement was against it.
He was like, the gun lobby doesn't like it. And thousands upon thousands of people started making phone calls saying, you at minimum need to give this a hearing. It needs to be thrown in a committee. So they made a special committee for it. And I was there at the Capitol the day that committee meeting took place. And I mean, you could not get through the extension without hitting somebody or knocking them over because they were there to support the gun bill. At least 1,000 people crowded around a committee room. Never seen this for anything. Even yesterday, there were teachers there for a teacher pay raise. It doesn't match what the gun lobby showed up for and did. They made it known this was going to happen, or there were going to be consequences come election time.
If it didn't. Exactly.
They showed up in numbers.
Yeah. And those numbers are what get things done. Because, like you say, you don't even have to say the words, there's going to be consequences if you don't get this done. They get the picture when they see those numbers. And like we already said, you don't even have to go in person this time. They've made it so easy to make your point known. You can do it on one of these, folks.
If you're feeling unknown and you're all alone, flesh and bone by the telephone, pick up the receiver, make them a believer.
Any final thoughts, Loren?
I guess I need to quit hoping that we don't have a 6 a.m. hearing night ever again, but maybe I should start saying, yes, we will have a hearing where we don't leave until 6 o'clock in the morning the next day because we had so many people testifying.
Well, yeah, absolutely. What about you, Jesse? Any final thoughts?
Be ready, pay attention, because we're going to be putting out alerts. I tell people the easiest way is we have a subscribe thing every time we come out with an article. You'll get an email about it. I've been trying to work on something where you'd actually get a separate one just for action alerts and possibly to your telephone through a text message. It's been difficult, but I say pay attention. You get the email and pay attention to that. Don't let the social media algorithm decide what's important for you on this. Because I know a lot of y'all are seeing it through mainly a lot of Instagram right now. Facebook, not so much, but still it's the same company. And if they decide, hey, we don't want them knowing about this, we don't want them pushing this, they can shut that down. But they can't come to our website and shut down our email subscription. So pay attention to email. If you want to have a special dedicated email for that, go for it.
Yeah.
That way you get updates about what's going on, because eventually we're going to say, hey, it's time to call. It's time to let them know, vote this, vote that, or you need to call Dan Patrick's office and ask them to put this in a committee. We did that last session. Medical bill kept getting yanked back and forth, and we finally said, hey, you need to make phone calls to his office. We put that out, and basically it choked the phone line so much and the emails so much that they were like, okay, we'll put this over. We'll do it.
Yeah.
But you got to be paying attention and ready.
That just reiterates what we've been saying. The more people contact, the more they're going to do. And my final thoughts before we look, I haven't looked through to see if there's any questions in the comments that we need to get to, Jesse. But my final thoughts are, like I said, don't take what I'm saying wrong. Nobody's getting in anybody's ass or anything. It's just, don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Don't be like I was. Don't be paranoid that because you speak out in support of changing cannabis law in Texas for what we all want. The end game. We all know what the end game is. Don't think that they're going to come knocking at your door the next day or next week, or they're going to start following you to work or any of that kind of stuff, because it doesn't happen. I mean, literally, when we walk into the Capitol, with a little marijuana pin on our lapel, I walk in there, and it's funny. The DPS officers look at me and go, "Hey, the weed guy, you're back again. Glad you're still in the fight, brother." This is Texas DPS officers, folks.
Oh man, I remember last session when the people were there for the opening day, there to protest, and we walked up and they recognized me and Austin and a few others, like, "Oh, you guys, we're not worried about you guys. You're the weed guys. You guys don't cause problems. You guys are good. Go on in here."
Yeah. I'm trying to look through the questions right quick to see if there's anything.
We really didn't have many.
It's more
questions.
Comments than questions.
People are asking, like, who wrote the bills? Like, Grace asked that. It's like the hemp bill, the big one, 264. That's Senator Perry, Charles Perry.
Yeah.
It's mainly comments about our hemp program, our medical program lacking, and things of that nature. I say, if you think our hemp program is lacking, I recommend you watch our last episode that Gramps did with Urban Bud, Paul Trow.
Yeah.
A lot of good information about our program in there. And then, yeah,
that's pretty much it.
Everybody's kind of happy that we're here and doing this and that.
Well, real quick before we go, I don't know if you can do it real quick or not. Can you pull up the event page for our next direct action, Jesse, or is that too much to ask?
Well, let's see here.
I want to talk about this one because, and we may have one next week on that hearing day with the 28th, where we're going to be probably testifying on some of those bills.
I say yes.
Yeah.
I'm loving the two, like you get two things done at once. Like
yeah. But this one we're scheduling for the 5th. We're kind of pushing it a little bit. The idea behind it is we want to make an impression because we're going into the home stretch. Beginning of April. This is on the 5th of April, so. It's getting into the home stretch, the final 2 months of the session. They're really getting down to the nuts and bolts of things. I mean, they're not writing bills, they're not filing bills, they're having hearings, they're having floor conversations and votes. And this particular direct action, we're going to be doing the same thing we've been doing. We're going to be passing out information in support of this bill or that bill. We haven't decided what the direct action will actually be yet, but we want to make an impression on this direct action day. We generally break into 4 groups, and it would be very impressive if we visited every single office on the 5th of April with 10 to 15 people in each one of those groups, just because we all walk in there together as a group, even though only one person's doing the talking. They see all those heads, and they do a quick head count, and they make note of it. And if they see that in every single office, that's going to make an impression. So if you're interested, joining us 10 a.m. at the Rotunda on the street level in the Capitol is where we will meet, and then we will disperse from there. Takes about an hour and a half.
Recommend
maybe.
Getting there probably actually arriving at the Capitol around 9:30 so you can find parking.
Yeah.
We haven't looked at the calendar to see if anybody's going to be having their own major lobby day that day.
Well, I've looked at the calendar, and there are no major lobbies on this day. So that's one reason why we picked this day.
Okay. We need some strategy. Yeah, parking is.
So we don't have like we had this past yesterday with the realtor lobby that was.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
if we could get groups like that to show up at the Capitol, like the realtors and the gun lobby and Geez, Louise, we'd be done with this conversation already.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be over. But that's a whole nother thing. At any rate, I think that's all I've got. If you don't have anything else, Jesse, I think that pretty much wraps it up.
That's going to wrap it up. We've been at this for an hour. We appreciate everybody who joined us live.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in.
And we appreciate everybody who comes in and watches it later too, or listens later. Big message to remember: get involved. If you want change, get involved, and that's as simple as phone calls. That's as simple as emails, and now it's as simple as putting your testimony on a bill when it's in committee. Real easy.
Yep.
Real easy. Takes less than 5 minutes, folks.
And we reward ourselves with 420 next year or next month. So yeah.
There you go. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope you come back and watch the show every week. And like I said, we got another show coming up probably next week sometime. We're going to get in a real in-depth discussion on the whole 264 Delta 8 conversation. Thank you all for joining us, and come back and see us.